All right, welcome to today's show. So we're going to jump in the game today and take a look at strategy and what's going on in the marketplace with them. And I'm going to look at strategies performance compared to other stocks this year. What's their overall to performance to date over the last 5 months? What does the future look like for strategy? We're also going to look at Saylor's plan over the next 5 years. I've got some clips to play from Saylor as well, so you can take a look at some of his wisdom. And then we're going to jump in
clips to play
and,
from Saylor as well.
And we're going to break it down and just jump in. So not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice. Do your own research, but let's jump in and take a look right now. All right, so if we look at strategy and we look at their year-to-date performance, we know that today they basically showed up in the game today in the low 360s. So the market opened, it dropped, and then strategy rose back up, closing after hours around 375, which is good news. And additionally, we're looking at their performance over the last year, and you can take a look at a 27.6% gain for the year so far with strategy, outperforming a lot of different stocks in their sector. And if you look at their performance year to date, they have 27.6% performance. You look at the average tech sector, it's 10.4%. So they're outperforming by a margin of about 17% when you compare it to the tech sector, which is still good news. And strategy also is dominating, as we know, the corporate Bitcoin holdings landscape. They're unmatched. When you look at the scale, it's not even close. We've got companies like Mara in line. We've got Riot in line. And we've got other companies that hold Bitcoin in their treasury as well. And strategy's got 592,000. They added a little bit more today. This one's incorrect. It says 602, but that's not right. And they made a big purchase in June of 10,100 Bitcoin added, which was about a week and a half ago. And they did $1 billion deployed. But today they bought a little bit more Bitcoin. It was a soft day for strategy, but they still bought millions and millions and millions of dollars of Bitcoin. So that is good news as well. So when you look at their performance this year, there's been many stocks who have Bitcoin in their treasury that have pulled back a little bit. So when you look at strategy's business model, it's positive with 27%. You look at Mara, negative 14%. You look at Riot, negative 6%. These numbers are as of last week. If you look at their technical strength, the 200-day moving average is bullish for strategy. So when the signal is showing strong long-term bullishness because they're maintaining their position above the 200-day moving average, that demonstrates really good market strength. So despite the fact that it's all over the place and strategy's kind of trading like a stable coin these days, is barely moving out of the 360, 370 range, it still has a good, strong bullish sign with the 200-day moving average. And we've got institutional investors looking at this pattern as pretty good. So that is positive news. Overall, you know the drill. Strategy's profits this year, if you look at the close as of April 2025, their unrealized gains would be close to $6 billion. I think it's actually more than that. If you look now, if they were to close the quarter today, the second quarter, they'd be over like $12 billion in unrealized gains. So in terms of what's going to happen when they close at the end of June and then they report their earnings, in their next report, which will be a month or so after that, they're going to come out with very, very strong unrealized gains, which is very different than their last report that they actually made public to the marketplace. So the current Bitcoin price is not 101,000. This slide is old as of this morning. We now know that Bitcoin is at 105. It would cross $106,000 today. So that's very good. And Strategy's end of year target is $15 billion is their target of what they're looking to put forth in unrealized gains in the marketplace. So that's a good target, and that's healthy for Strategy. Healthy for us as well, those of us who own it. So we know that their main strategy is simple. They have equity offerings where they, have their stock, where they issue stock in the marketplace, common shares, and people buy their stock and they buy more Bitcoin. We also know that they have a fixed income strategy, and it's low interest debt instruments secured against appreciating Bitcoin reserves. So, they're borrowing money to buy Bitcoin. They're issuing preferred stock to buy Bitcoin. They have lots of fixed income instruments. So this is why they're a strong company, because they have many ways to buy Bitcoin, which is super cool. And then, there's been many ways that strategies raise, additional dollars this year, raised billions and billions of dollars to buy Bitcoin. So that's always a good sign. And here's the basic plan, 21-21 plan. So when we look at the 21 million max supply of Bitcoin, Bitcoin's got already 19.6 million coins issued in the marketplace. There's about 450 being issued every single day. That supply is being gobbled up by Bitcoin treasuries, and it's also being gobbled up by the ETFs as well. Strategy has a 5-year aggressive plan, 21 quarters of acquisition. So if you look at 4 quarters in a year, over the next 5 years, they have 21 quarters of major acquisition. And could they potentially get to a 21% market share? They already own over 3% of the market share in terms of Bitcoin. Getting to 21% would be super aggressive, but who knows, right? So that is the story. They do have a software company that most people are not interested in, but their subscription revenue is going up year after year. And strategy also, is pretty healthy when you look at their price book valuation. So when you take out their debt and when you look at what they're trading at compared to, the Bitcoin they have on their balance sheet, they have a very, very healthy, balance sheet because they don't have a lot of debt. And, I think their average Bitcoin buy is around a $69,000 price point. Bitcoin's now currently valued at $106,000 right now. So strategy's in good shape. And there's a whole controversy going on about whether a strategy is worth the premium that people are paying for it right now. You see a lot of that as a debate in the marketplace, particularly with people that are shorting the stock. But I have some slides in a moment that somebody posted today on X. That's a pretty good case point of a point of view of how to look at strategies trading at a premium in the marketplace, and is it worth it? I definitely think it's worth it. That's why I own it. Many other people think it's worth it. That's why they own it. But it's a different point of view of somebody who just posted today that I'll show you in just a second. So in the meantime, I do want to show you a video from Saylor, which I think is pretty cool. So let's check this out. Let me know if you can hear it as I'm playing it. Because
it's going up 30% a year for the next 20 years.
Good.
I think the best way to get superior returns, 100x type returns, if you're an individual, would be you keep your day job, and so you maximize the cash flow you generate via whatever your profession is. You're responsible on your expenditures. You have to think in the year 2045, I think a Bitcoin's worth $13 million. So every Bitcoin that you don't buy is a $13 million cost. That Ferrari that you're going to buy is going to cost you like 6 Bitcoin. And so it's going to be a $100 million Ferrari, right? If you look out 20 years. So you have to keep your job, unless you're insanely rich, don't splurge on the Ferrari, buy the 6 Bitcoin instead. And with regard to leverage, the intelligent leverage for the individual is generally long-dated, mid-dated mortgage debt. So if I have any kind of property, if I have a house, I would put a long mortgage on it, a 10-year mortgage, a 15, a 20-year mortgage on it, especially a conforming loan, and then I would roll it into Bitcoin. Because mortgage debt is not mark to market. It's against an asset which is fairly stable. Normally the interest rates are somewhat subsidized by a Fannie Mae or a Freddie Mac program or a government program. So it's the cheapest form of permanent capital that someone can get. So, I give you what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't quit your job. You shouldn't splurge on sports cars you can't afford. Don't buy a yacht because it's obscenely expensive, and don't pay off your mortgages. Don't get debt free. Any capital you have that's not marked to market capital would be better invested in an asset that's going up 30% a year for the next 20 years.
Brilliant words from Michael Saylor, as always. So in any case, so just commenting on a few things in the chat box about this. I mean, I do think that strategy is still going up this year. I think we're just getting started. I think if you look at what's going on with everything happening over in the Middle East, and we saw that Bitcoin drop down to 98,000. You just look how resilient Bitcoin is within 24 hours, how resilient strategy is within 24 hours. And you have all this stuff that keeps popping up, and it keeps staying solid as a stock. Again, strategy's up 27% this year. And when you look at Bitcoin, it keeps staying solid despite the tariffs, despite the war, despite the bad news in the economy, and despite the Fed not lowering the interest rates. We still have the perseverance of Bitcoin because more and more people are gobbling up Bitcoin, and more institutions, I should say, are gobbling up Bitcoin. And it's just becoming a more stable asset. So overall, I'm still very bullish about 2025 and the rest of the year. I know we've been wanting a run to happen, like now, like let's get this thing going now. But at the end of the day, despite all the chaos in the environment, look how strong strategy is and look how strong Bitcoin is. So that should be just resolve enough for one to look at this and go, these are some seriously powerful assets. And Saylor continues to buy again and again and again. And I love his I'm going to fast forward to his quote here, which is brilliant. Nothing stops this orange, so despite the fact that they've been hit with lawsuits, and despite the fact that people are shorting the stock, as the stars rise, you have the people coming out of the woodworks, the screamers coming out of the woodworks, attacking the company or trying to short the company or what have you. But nothing stops the orange. He continues to buy and he continues to buy, and he just continues to crush it. 21 million in 21 years, so perhaps that's the that's the new standard right now, right? But he just continues to stay in the game, Saylor. He continues to go after it, and he continues to win. And so if anybody's doubting or questioning whether Saylor is going to stick to his strategy, he does it week after week after week, despite wars, despite tariffs, despite people shorting the stock. And look, the stock's still holding steady, and it's still holding that in that range of 374, 375, even though it dropped a little bit today. So the world keeps coming at strategy and Bitcoin, and they keep just pushing back. And I think we're going to see some all-time highs here on Bitcoin soon, maybe this month, and we'll see what happens. So it's just nice to see. Strategy posted their Bitcoin playbook to the world. Obviously, they've invited the world. And if you look at the performance, the big yellow line is strategy. You got Mara next. You got companies like CEP. You got Riot. You got all different kinds of Bitcoin treasury companies. Metaplanet, obviously, stealing the show these days. But look at the number of publicly listed companies that are running this strategy. It's brilliant. And Chris Millis has a nice little thing here that you look at of, if you're going to give a scorecard or rate a Bitcoin treasury company, he would rate it on 5 characteristics: leadership, how competent are the operators leading the Bitcoin strategy; tranches, like what products are being issued out of ATM, converts, and preferred equity. Then you look at the flywheel as number 3. How well is the company fueling the Bitcoin flywheel? And then sentiment, how strong is investor confidence and narrative momentum? And then runway, how much potential is there to generate Bitcoin yield? That's what strategy is about, generating more Bitcoin per share for the shareholders. That's what they're doing. So it's pretty interesting. But if you were to rate it this way per the way Chris is, and you look at the boxes, if you can see them over to the right, it's interesting. You got these 5 things, you score them. He's scoring strategy at a 19. It's not the highest score. He's saying that the sentiment on strategy is kind of lower. But that's fine. Overall, the market's going to do what the market's going to do in terms of their sentiment with strategy right now. I know where my sentiment is, and my sentiment's on the future, and my sentiment is bullish on the company. This is old news. Somebody posted this today on X, but it's actually old news. BlackRock acquired a stake in strategy back in February. They had to announce, anytime you have over a 5% stake like that, you have to announce it and make it public. So they have a 5.6% stake. This is not new news. Somebody posted this, but with 11 trillion under management, the fact that they hold a stake in strategy is good news for us as shareholders, which is pretty dope. And Metaplanet has acquired 1,111 Bitcoin for $118.2 million per the Bitcoin Therapist. Jeff Walton says strategy has a 4-year head start in the largest and most important land grab of all time, Bitcoin. They have an order of magnitude of 12x more than the next closest public company. So bottom line is this is not fading. This company is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's eating it up. Bitcoin dominance is at its highest level since January 2021. And if we look at the dominance of Bitcoin and we look at strategy, let's hear from Saylor one more time here and hear what he has to say.
The global wealth is distributed across. Bitcoin represents the greatest digital transformation of the 21st century. It represents digital capital. The global wealth is distributed across assets that provide utility and others that preserve capital. But risk is destroying trillions of dollars of that capital every single year, and investors are turning to digital capital in the form of Bitcoin in order to avoid that risk. Digital capital is economically and technically superior to physical capital, and it represents a revolutionary advance in capital preservation. The asset class itself is growing from trillions to hundreds of trillions of dollars, and it is backed by digital power along with political and economic power. Bitcoin's the best asset you can own. The numbers speak for themselves. It makes a lot more sense to buy Bitcoin than to buy your own stock back or to hold Bitcoin rather than holding bonds. If you're going to outperform, you're going to need Bitcoin. Luckily, you have an alternative. Public support for Bitcoin is surging, as is support for the U.S. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve.
Sell them into Bitcoin. That way, we wouldn't have to use any new dollars.
As is Wall Street support.
I believe Bitcoin is legitimate.
And the President of the United States says,
never sell your Bitcoin, right?
That's why we're entering year one of the crypto renaissance. And you have a choice to make. Cling to the past or embrace the future. Divest billions of dollars and slow your growth rate. Invest billions of dollars and accelerate your growth rate.
Pretty cool, right? Pretty freaking cool. I don't think, anybody really knows what's going to happen at the second half of 2025 with strategy in terms of how much it could move. But we've seen how this stock moves before. If you watched it in 2024, you've sat through these periods of trading sideways for months and months and months and months. And then you've seen just parabolic moves to the upside. So I remember in 2024 when we had the move up before the stock split and it ran up to 2,000 and it dropped all the way back down to 1,000. And then it's run all the way back up again. So don't forget that when this stock moves, it moves big time. And also let's not forget the fact that there are a bunch of shorts on strategy right now. There's 10% of all the outstanding shares right now are being shorted. And so when we move through this and strategy, these shorts get liquidated and there's a short squeeze, the price was going to shoot up is my prediction. So that's the bottom line. And I think that we're in for a treat in 2025. There's another cool thing to look at here. We'll take a look at Michael Saylor saying that strategy has beat every single company in the S&P 500 index using Bitcoin strategy. So one day, strategy this year, I think, will be added to the S&P 500, and he's saying it's beat every single company in the S&P. Their performance is outstanding over the last year and over the last 4 or 5 years as well. You see the recent acquisition today, 245 Bitcoin. And again, they're acquiring their Bitcoin, and they now have 592,345 Bitcoin for an average buy price of 70,681. So there you have it with strategy. The slide I wanted to show you that's interesting, which was a post today. That's a nice, interesting perspective here that we can look at, which is the premium at which BT's MSTR trades at. So let me find the slide for you. So this is the basic premise here is if you look at Bitcoin holding growth and you look at strategy and their Bitcoin holding growth doubling every 16 to 18 months, Strategy currently holds significant Bitcoin per share of company stock. So every time Saylor goes and buys Bitcoin, he's trying to increase the Bitcoin per share of the shareholders like us, which is what we're interested in. And so this is talking about the aggressive acquisition pace doubles Bitcoin holdings per share every 16 to 18 months. So 16 to 18 months from now, the Bitcoin per share that we hold as shareholders right now, in 16 to 18 months, it will double. And so if you're looking at the long-term valuation of the company, and a lot of times people ask, is the current premium valuation justified right now? Well, you could look out into the future and say, if Bitcoin per share is going to double every 16 to 18 months, it's one viewpoint of how to look at it as a justified way where it's trading at a premium, meaning we buy the stock and we pay more for the stock than their Bitcoin holdings. And right now, the premium that MSTR trades at is at about a 1.7 right now. And sometimes it trades at a 2. In 2024, it trades as a 3, at a 3x, and it even traded as high as a 4x. So this is one viewpoint. I don't think this is the only viewpoint on it. I think it justifies trading for a premium right now based on the intelligent leverage that the company uses and all the different ways that it can buy and acquire Bitcoin. But this is a nice viewpoint. And Adam Back, he says, just wait 60 months and you'll catch up, quote unquote, on the value because the company keeps stacking more Bitcoin. So it's just a validation of, like, if one did not see the value or the justification of the premium today, in 16 and 18 months, you could justify paying twice right now because in the future, that's what it's going to be valued at. And if you look at stocks and how they're valued, stocks are not valued only on today. Stocks are valued on the future outlook as well. So you should take a future outlook of strategy, even though they have a completely different way of running a operating company, because their strategy is to acquire more and more Bitcoin. But you look at other companies that produce widgets and iPhones and all kinds of products, they're obviously have a completely different strategy, but you don't value them just based on today. You value them based on the future outlook. So this is a great way to take a look at the future outlook of strategy and see what you think the stock is actually worth. So nice perspective from Adam Back on that. And the current premium, as you see here, strategy trades anywhere from a 1.7 to 1.9x. That's been fluctuating over the last couple months. And so there you have it. So either way, I think their overall game plan, them being the biggest in the space, them being the first mover, them having a lot of institutional confidence right now in them, the consistency of the leadership buying Bitcoin every single week, the consistency of Saylor and his vision of what he wants to do with the company. I just think it's a strong company. It doesn't mean it's not volatile. Of course, Bitcoin's volatile, strategy's volatile, but overall strategy is an extraordinary company with an extraordinary leader and an extraordinary strategy to continue to acquire Bitcoin and continue to increase the Bitcoin per share of the shareholders, with extraordinary ways to do it, of issuing common stock, of fixed income products with the preferred stock and convertible bonds. So that's why it's a brilliant company. So there you have it. The one and only strategy. Well done. Saylor is a beast. One can argue his point of view of what he's doing. One can argue his actions on what he's doing, but you have to just outright admire the guy, whether one likes him or not, or supports what he's doing or not. You have to admire the balls, the persistence, and the stick-to-itiveness to just keep going after it day in, day out, and to keep staying persistent. And, I would say that he's a big reason for Bitcoin to be at the price that it's at right now, instilling confidence in the marketplace. So while many people are losing confidence in their government and investing in government bonds and putting their money there, they're gaining confidence in Bitcoin because people like Saylor are instilling confidence in the economy. Companies like BlackRock that continue to buy are instilling confidence in the public with their recommendations that people should have 2 to 3% or 4% in their portfolio. They're instilling more and more confidence. So it's all good news for the future. We look at the stock trading sideways down. It dropped quite a bit today, down at 363, a little bit of a spooker. But we know things are happening over in the Middle East. And you look at how stocks have recovered. You look at how strategies recovered. You look at how Bitcoin's recovered. So if this is what's happening in the middle of like attacks and quote unquote war, and this is how stable Bitcoin is, I think we got a good second half of the year coming, guys. All right. Hope this serves you. Not financial advice on this channel, not tax advice, not legal advice. Do your own research. And I hope this serves you. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. And I hope things are going well for you with strategy and Bitcoin and that you continue to win. Okay. Stay well and stay safe and be smart.